Thanks for joining us today on our journeys through the Scriptures and our Route 66 travels. Our Wonderful Day of the Lord broadcast has been going through the Bible together, looking for a key verse and a key word for each of the books of Scripture. We spend some extra time in the Psalms and Proverbs, but now we're moving forward. And we're going to come today to the most unusual book, perhaps in all the Bible, the Song of Solomon, sometimes called the Song of Songs. Christians and the Jews have had a struggle forever knowing what to do with this book. It's like no other book. As a result of that, it's often been interpreted in an allegorical method. Rather than taking it for face value and literally for what it says, there's been these allegorical approaches. The Jews would look at this book and say, this is a picture of God's love for Israel and his relationship with the Jews. The Christians, on the other hand, moved it up to Christ's love for the church and God's relationship with his Christian people, and allegorized all these various sayings and compliments found throughout the book, which sometimes is a real stretch, as if you read the book, you'll see. But that's been a normal approach throughout the ages. In more modern times, students of Scripture have recognized that this book is to be read like all other books of the Bible in a literal fashion. And therefore, we're looking at not an allegory but of God's love for the church or whatever. It's a picture of romantic love within marriage, the love between a man and a woman. Solomon is not known for his great love life. He had many wives and so forth, but those did not seem to be loving relationships. They were more political in nature. He does have, it would seem, one great love of his life, and it's talked about here in this particular book. There are three actors in the drama that we have in the book. The first one is Solomon himself. He's a relatively young king in Israel, and he has fallen for a young shepherdess lady that is not royalty. She's not a princess anywhere, but she's beautiful. She has caught his eye. She is someone he wants to get to know, and so we have that relationship started. Eventually, he would marry her, and he is very complimentary of her throughout the book. He says, for example, in verse 15 of chapter 1, "How beautiful you are, my darling. How beautiful you are. Your eyes are like doves." In chapter 2, verse 2, he says, "Like a lily among the thorns, so is my darling among the maidens." And so he is very complimentary of her and says many things of that nature. Equally, we find that she is complimentary of him. And that's our second actor in our drama. We have this shepherdess gal. We don't know her name. We know she is from Shulam, and so she's normally called the Shulamite. But she is not a princess. She is a working class gal. And Solomon, for whatever reason, has fallen for her, and she is in love with him. She compliments him in an equal fashion. In chapter 2, verse 3, it says, "Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. In his shade I took great delight and sat down, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. He has brought me into his banqueting hall, and his banner over me is love." She loves him, she wants to be with him, and she is extremely complimentary of him. And so we find later on as they marry and develop a life together, they take the time to be together. And over in chapter 7, it says concerning his desire to be with her, and I went too many pages there, but in chapter 7, and verse 10, it says, "I am my beloved's, and his desires for me." That's what she says. "Come, my beloved, let us go out into the country. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us rise up early and go to the vineyards, and let us see whether the vine has budded and the blossoms have opened," and so forth. "And there I will give you my love." And so they spend time together developing this love relationship. A third set of actors is called by some the choir. We see them in chapter 5, verse 1, for example, at the end. "Eat, friends, drink, and imbibe deeply, O lovers." They approve this love relationship, and they seem to stand for God himself, who approves this marital romance, this marital love relationship between the two. So the Song of Solomon has to be, the key word has to be love. Not the love between God and his church, but a love between a man and a woman in a proper biblical love relationship in marriage. And so our key word is love. Our key verse is back in chapter 2, and we're going to look at verse 4 when he says this, he brought me into his banqueting hall, and his banner over me is love. Our key verse is the end of that verse 4, and his banner over me is love. God's banner over us is love, but he's not talking about that. He's talking about the love between a man and a woman, and she is under his banner, under his security, loving that relationship with him. And so that type of relationship, a loving relationship between a man and a woman, gives us a wonderful life together as we serve God together as a husband and wife. A story about love, and God puts his approval, his stamp of approval, on the love between a husband and wife.